Welcome to the Unapologetically Prioritizing Peace video podcast channel, where we will discuss the revolutionary concepts of achieving success without sacrificing your well-being. I'm your host, Carla Hunt, CEO and founder of Prioritizing Peace. You can achieve your success without sacrifice. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and hit that notification button so you know when the next video podcast has been released. I want to welcome my special guest, Ashrita Muna, personal power coach, helping executive female leaders gain more clarity, consistency, and confidence to have the energy and internal inspiration to go after what they truly want. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me here, Carla.
Yes. Referencing episode 10 on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we often get stuck in lower deficiency needs around safety and security. And we really have to have an awareness of what deficiency needs are causing us to feel stuck where we are, what needs are holding us back in our comfort zone and preventing us from getting to greater needs. And you and I both recently left our full-time day jobs to go all in on our businesses. So my first question to you is, how did you know you were ready to leave your job?
Yes, thank you, Carla, for that question. Yeah, I'm so excited to have left my job, and congratulations to you, Carla, again for leaving your job as well. So I knew I was ready to leave my job. It was multiple reasons, right? So for me, I started my business back then. It was a personal training business back in 2018. And so I had started a personal training business. I did that on the side while working full time, my 9 to 5. And I knew at that moment in 2018, when I started my business, that I wasn't meant to work for someone else, right? And that I was really meant to create my own business and my own organization. And I had a specific mission in life that I wanted to go after. And so I realized that in 2018, and it took me several years to get to where I am now, right? Which is, it's 2021 now, and I left my job last month. And so, how I knew I was ready at this time in this specific year was that this was something that I had been kind of intentionally planning out for a while. And what I actually did was immerse myself in communities of people who were doing the things that I wanted to do. And that was part of how I was able to kind of leave my job. But I knew that I wanted to leave my job now because there was this voice inside of me, right, that constantly nagged at me, even though I was at my job and I was doing a pretty good job, right? I was really following through with the projects and really was in a trajectory to be promoted to the next level in my position. But I knew that something was off, and I knew that what I was doing, the actual work itself, wasn't work that it was actually inspiring me and energizing me, right? The work that I did, I actually became really good at, but that actually, what I discovered wasn't actually my natural talent, natural skill, and what really helps me feel energized. And so that was actually one of the ways that I knew that it was time now, because that voice, even though, so in 2018, that voice was kind of small at that point, and I was just kind of getting used to having something on the side that I created on my own. And then that voice kind of starts to get louder and louder as the years pass by, as I became more aware of myself and learned more about myself. And so I knew at that moment, this year, that it was time to kind of leave the job. And I actually did also declare a year ago for this program that actually Carla and I both were part of. I had declared to everyone that I was going to leave exactly on June 2021. And this was a year ago from June 2021. And so I just knew that this would be the next step that I needed to take in order to really take myself to the next level, right? And also for the job that I was working in, I also didn't like that I had a limitation with how much money I can earn as well, right? So 9 to 5 jobs, you're paid a salary, and you're working 40 hours. In my situation, I was working way more than 40 hours, but the effort that I was putting into my work and the time that I was putting into my work wasn't actually paying off in revenue. Of course, I was fulfilled to an extent, right? But I knew there was a larger impact that I could also create. So it was really about, how can I create more impact? And also, how can I also attract more money into my life and not feel like I'm limited in what I can create and what I can attract to myself?
That's so powerful. And I resonate with everything that you said because I felt those same exact things in my experience where, I was working so many hours and then I was limited by the amount of revenue that I could generate for myself. I mean, I was infinite revenue I was generating for someone else, but not for myself because of, that salary cap that I was at. And that's very powerful, but I had so much more potential of, value I could create and
Yeah.
impact for others.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love that you followed that and are recognizing that now. So that is so awesome.
Yeah. So what were the fears and deficiency needs, like safety and security, that might have been holding you back in your decision to leave?
Yeah, I mean, so there were a couple of things. So I was under this mindset and perception that, because I had a 9 to 5 salary job that was paying me, that I was secure, I'm good, right? So I really was under this illusion because, I know that security is an illusion now, after doing all the work that I've done over the past couple of years, that it's just an illusion. And that just having that perception about my 9 to 5 job was preventing me, right? It was like really preventing me from moving forward because I felt like I needed to have this job in order to pay my bills, in order to reach my goals. And that's not necessarily true. You don't have to actually work a 9 to 5 job that maybe that you're not super inspired and energized by to kind of create what you want to create. And then the other thing that was holding me back, to be completely honest, was that, like I said, back in 2018, I knew that I was not meant to work for someone. I knew I was going to leave the 9 to 5 corporate world and not work for anyone. I knew that at 2018. But what I realized at that time was that I didn't trust myself enough to leave my full-time secure quote unquote job to create something on my own and go work on my business. And so it was really about trusting myself and really believing and internalizing this trust, right? It's not just like the woo-woo, like Instagram, trust yourself, but it was like really about building that internal trust in me so that I know that if I left my 9 to 5 job, like I'm going to be okay, right? I'm going to be fine and I'm going to be able to track the money. And so that was part of it as well. And then the other part also for me was that I didn't actually have people around me that were who were coaches and entrepreneurs who were outside of this 9 to 5 box that we're kind of socially conditioned to work off of, right? And so I didn't actually have people close to me that were doing what I wanted to do. And so that was also part of like the fears, right? It's like, I don't know what to expect, like this fear of unknown and not knowing what was going to happen. So I would say it was probably a combination of all those things.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of it is the unknown and wanting that I'm already here. I know this, it's familiar. It feels safe because it's familiar, and that's our comfort zone, where what's comfortable is where we stay because it's easy to do. We get safe there. And getting out of our comfort zone is very scary, but that's, what they always say is where the magic happens. And
Absolutely.
for me, my biggest security, safety thing that kept me back was insurance. Like, I was confident in my ability to create more income and revenue, but the thing that held me back was like, okay, well, I'm going to need insurance. Like, everyone needs insurance in, society. And then I, went out of my way to get insurance before I left my job.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think it was a really big test of faith, especially like after I left my job, because after I made the commitment to leave and then followed through on it. My insurance, the person who was submitting the paperwork did not, do the paperwork correctly, and it didn't get submitted. So although I put the steps in place so that I felt secure having insurance, it still fell through, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I had the illusion of security that I had insurance to leave. So I had that false sense of security of I have insurance before I leave. And I don't have insurance as of right now because of that falling through. But after having that experience, it really goes to show that safety is an illusion because it made me feel safe enough to execute leaving, but after leaving, it really hasn't impacted my ability to do anything else. And
Yeah.
I really want to point out that like a few years ago, when I had let my health go, when I was more overweight, when I was had more health conditions and I was taking more medications for those health conditions, which led to more health conditions. So like every time I took a medication, it required me to take another medication on top of it to address something else, a side effect.
Mhm.
Like I was in worse condition then, but
Yeah.
as I got, started addressing and taking care of my health and my well-being and making that a priority in my life, I have less health conditions, less health concerns. I take less medication. And so the less need of medication is a less need for health insurance. And so I'm okay without needing health insurance right now. And so I was
Yeah.
like, the necessity of that safety and security that we talk about, quote unquote, it wasn't as big of a deal as I made it seem when I was just like, I need to have this thing. I have to have it. And I really didn't because I took care of myself.
Yeah, exactly. And it sounds like you were still kind of living off the past, the old version,
Yeah.
right? You're a
Yeah.
completely new version of Carla now, right? So keep that in mind. And we tend to always go back to the old us. And that kind of prevents us from moving forward to what we want to create in the future, right? And so that's really powerful.
Absolutely. We get caught up on our past versions of ourselves and past experiences and events, as well as what society is telling us too. Society is like, you have to have health insurance, you have to have these basic necessities. And
Yeah.
in reality, there are no rules because we've seen in the pandemic, like people just got sent home on, an instant as
Yeah.
soon as the pandemic hit, and they didn't get their jobs back. They didn't get their insurance back.
Yeah.
And there is no security in that.
Exactly. And it's interesting too, because for me, I don't have health insurance yet and it's going to come together, but I wasn't worried at all. I was like, that, like insurance wasn't even something that I wasn't even thinking about when I was thinking about, can I leave my job? And so it's very interesting how security is also, it like comes up in different ways, right? For me, security was about having this income consistently come because I didn't trust myself enough to generate income outside of this 9 to 5 paradigm, right?
Yeah.
So it's really cool.
Yeah. Something that you mentioned before was that back in 2018, you were not surrounded by other entrepreneurs. So is that something that you went out of your way to do, is surround yourself with other like-minded people so that you felt more comfortable and had, that environment, community, and support and resources to
Yeah.
start making that transition?
That's a really good question. So to be completely honest, I wasn't looking for a specific group of entrepreneurs or coaches. What I knew that I needed in my life, and because of the way that I grew up, was that I just needed people who could support me. Because so much of my childhood, I grew up in a household where my mom has a mental illness. My dad was working like 3 jobs, right? Because my mom couldn't work, and so there was a lot of stress. We grew up working class, and so for me, I felt like my needs as a little girl wasn't met, and so I didn't feel supported, right? And so that was a story that I carried until I built my own business, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so unsupported. And so I knew I needed support, but I didn't know what kind of support that I was looking for. And so I actually just fell upon communities of coaches and entrepreneurs, and it kind of just happened. Like the universe was like, okay, Ashrita, you want support? Here you go. This is the type of support you need to be stepping into, right? And so it's really cool how that all unfolded. And the way that I was able to get there was I was just very curious, and I just followed my intuition, was like, okay, this feels right. I'm going to do this program. These people feel like really amazing and who I want to aspire to be like. And so it was really following those like intuitive clues rather than like knowing exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah. So I think that kind of brings in the question about purpose and alignment,
Right.
too, because I feel the same way. Like people ask me like, well, how did you come to start your business? And I'm like, I don't know. It just happened. Like I had like a clue here and a clue there and a dream and intuitive thing happen because I'm the exact same way. My mom was a stay-at-home mom because she was on disability for, mental health reasons. And then my dad was an over-the-road truck driver and he, provided for the family. So it was almost very similar situation where I also felt like I was providing for my family's needs and I didn't really get a chance to be a kid. I talk about this, and I think another one of my podcasts, that I was upset about child labor laws because I wanted to get a job when I was 7 because I knew we were poor.
Yeah.
So it's really, going back to the purpose and alignment question, like knowing like what's right, that really trusting yourself, feeling in alignment with your purpose, to know like, am I going down the right path when you come to like a crossroad?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's really following that energy, right? That energy, like whether it's really based out of the fear or is it coming from a place of like really feeling expanded and expansion. So that's how I was able to recognize that what I was doing was in alignment with like where I wanted to go.
I love that. Is it fear or is it expansion? Because sometimes scary things are expansive.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that actually brings up the work, that I do now actually with executive female leaders and my clients. Is all around like kind of peeling the onion, right? And getting to a place where we can follow our intuition. And I had to personally do lots of work with myself so that I can actually follow the intuition that felt right and aligned rather than doing things out of fear, which was how I grew up, right? That's how I grew up, was that it was everything that my parents did for the most part was out of like this scarcity mindset and from fear.
Yeah, definitely. So I would ask, going back from, like your whole journey from like 2018 to now, is there anything that you would have done differently? Is there any advice that you would give to your past self?
Yeah.
Or would you do it all the same?
Yeah, that's such a good question. I think, a year ago, I would have probably said to you, I would have done all these things differently. But I think now, like I said, we're a new person every day and we're evolving and growing. And I feel that I probably wouldn't have done anything differently because I do feel like whether it was something good in my life or positive, they all kind of have led me to where I am today. And so, like, if I didn't have some of these moments where things were super cloudy, right? And I was like in this emotional state and I didn't work through that, I wouldn't have grown to get to the next level of me, right? And so I'm grateful, I guess, for all of the experiences that I've had. And so I feel really good about where I am. And so I don't think I probably would have done anything differently. And I'm a big believer of like, everything kind of happens for a reason. And the universe is constantly giving us clues, but it's really about like, are you actually listening? Are you paying attention to those clues? And so over the past year or a half, that's something that I've been working personally on myself to do that. And so I guess to go back to your first question, that was part of how I was able to leave my full-time job as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I think I wouldn't change anything in my journey either, especially because my journey just like, it's just so random in my opinion. I mean, I still feel like it's unfolding and that's why I feel like it's random, but I know like as bits and pieces are unfolding and I'm like, that wasn't so random. And I'm still waiting for the rest of it to unfold so I can put the rest of the puzzle pieces together. And so that's why I'm like, I don't know that I can change anything because if I change one thing, it's going to have a weird domino effect and change something that I don't want to happen differently in the future.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Exactly. And yeah, I love that. I do think that everything does happen for a reason. So I absolutely love that you've been really following those intuitive clues and feel good with where you are. Because I think sometimes people get caught up in the past, right? And living in the past. Oh my gosh, I wish I did this differently and that differently. And for me, it just doesn't feel like productive for me to like go back in time and think about like what I could have done differently. I mean, I do think there is definitely power in like kind of reflecting and finding ways that you can get better, right? But not like changing anything in the past necessarily.
Yeah, there's room for growth and accepting and taking the lesson that you needed from it so that, you're not repeating it because you will repeat it until you learn the lesson.
Exactly.
But once you learn the lesson, there's no more point in staying in the past.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So my next question is, what does success mean to you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So when I saw this question, I was like, I feel like people will respond in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But I think for me, success is really, it's really for me to step out of my own comfort zone every day, and for me to like prove to myself that I can do difficult things, right? Because I always had this story, I think, growing up the way that I did in my circumstances, that I thought really small, right? And I wasn't thinking big enough. And even until today, I have friends who I love dearly who are still thinking very small. And um, so I think it's really just like every day, just like proving to myself that I can do difficult things. And then the other thing for me is really, my business is really set up to really help people and help female leaders so that they can change themselves, and then they can have a ripple effect on the people around them and their community. And so for me, as long as I feel like I'm doing my dharma and stepping into my purpose every day and working in my purpose, then I feel very successful. So I guess those are the two things that I always kind of put my intentions out there on a daily basis. It's like, am I actually stepping out of my own comfort zone and growing every day? And am I doing, am I stepping into my purpose and really helping people, become more expansive and create what they want so that they can have that ripple effect on other people?
I love that. I love that. I look at success as on a holistic standpoint of, have I accomplished the things that I want to accomplish? And so really when I look at success, it's really an intention behind it. So what was the intention that I set? And did I execute that intention? And am I including in those intentions my happiness, my peace, and my well-being? Because a lot of times when we look at success, we only consider, like a monetary value, or I think someone had said somewhere that success is, working 8 days a week and never seeing your family. And based on that intention, they were being successful. But, they weren't hitting all of their other values, like for the family that they were working for, they were never seeing them.
Right.
So it's really, what are your values? What are you overall looking for? Are you happy at the end of the day when you've executed the other intentions of, making money and, completing tasks?
Yeah.
Is your well-being taken care of, your health, wellness, and mental health even? So it's from a holistic standpoint. For me, it's, what does success look like? Because it's includes, the feeling. And it doesn't, for me, matter what it looks like to someone else, because it truly doesn't matter what it looks like to someone else. It matters to me what it is, because a lot of people get stuck on, in what is it called? The golden handcuffs, where you buy all the fancy things. You buy, the huge house, the fancy car, and you have on the face value the perfect life, right? But you're stuck in a job that you hate to maintain that lifestyle.
Right.
And a lot of people, especially in our capitalistic, American dream society, get stuck there because they want their life to look good, but it doesn't feel good because they're not hitting the mark on their mental health, their well-being, or their physical health at all.
Absolutely. Well, they're chasing what society tells us is success, right? And so they're chasing that, and they're not really following what they need, and not following their feelings, like you said, right? It's not about the feelings, it's about what society is telling us is success looks like.
Right. They're trying to keep up with the Kardashians,
right.
And that's an unrealistic expectation to try to follow with, multi-million dollar mansions.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's been handed down to an extent, right? Too.
It has. That wasn't an organic overnight process. Her dad was a successful lawyer, so there's already that generational wealth to start off with.
Exactly. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. If there would be one thing that you would want to leave the viewers with, to leave them to like a question or just a statement to have them ponder on, what would it be?
Yeah. So I guess I'm a big believer of kind of what you were saying now is like being a whole person, right? So really having balance in your life and being a whole person. So having, money if that's something that you want, but like the health is just as important, the relationships that you're around, right? And the people that you're around. And so what I would say is that for anyone that's maybe listening to this and might be feeling maybe uneasy or feeling like they're not good enough, right? What I would say is like always kind of go back to your feelings and also like how are you kind of taking care of yourself, right? Like are you putting self-care on the last on your list, or is that a priority for you? And if you are someone who's kind of working 9 to 5 and you're chasing a specific like result and goal and maybe income, is that like why are you doing that, right? Like what is the reason? Is it because you really truly want that, or is it because of what we kind of just said, is that society is telling us that's what success looks like?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That's very powerful. And if people want to reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I should know this by now. My Instagram, it's Ashrita_coach. So ASHRITA and then _coach on Instagram. And then and if you want to kind of follow me on my website and maybe if you have questions, I do have a group coaching program called Heal and Flourish. And I'll be launching again this fall. And the website is AshritaTiwari.com. So that's TIWARI.com.
Awesome. We'll put that in the description so that they can easily find you.
Awesome. Yay. Thank you for having me, Carla.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time so much. Thank you for watching this episode of the Unapologetically Prioritizing Peace video podcast with your host, Carla Hunt. If you have any questions or would like to suggest a topic, please email me at hello@prioritizingpeace.com.